All right, we are live. Welcome to another edition of our weekly Wednesday series where I have the opportunity to get to interview some of the top agents and service providers all across the country. And today we're here with Matthew and Jen. We have another colleague that may join us a little bit later, but let's kind of just jump right in and listen to the stories of both of them and learn about their markets. We're covering Sacramento and Reno today. So Matthew, do you want to share a little bit of your background and how long you've been in the business, but also how do you got into the business?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. First of all, it's an honor to be on this and to be thought of and invited. Appreciate that very much, Spencer. I know you're rock star down in the Bay. So, in fact, we actually have a bunch of the Bay Area people moving up our way, both Jen and I. It seems like the progression is up to Sac and then maybe from Sac up to Reno, Sparks area where she's at. But no, I've been licensed. I'm a broker. I've been selling over 20 years. I think this is my 21st year I'm working on, if I'm not mistaken. I come from a real estate background. My parents have both been brokers for, 40. Well, they don't want me to share after 40, but it's 40 plus years. And my mom was the number one selling agent for the entire county of Placer County in the late 80s and early 90s. Which absolutely amazes me because that was back before DocuSign. That was back before really email. In fact, I remember being in their office I think I was 19, 20, right in there when I got my license, and fax machine was the big purchase. I think it was $1,500 for a fax machine or something. And we were in awe of the technology. So that's kind of my background. Born in Auburn, grew up in a little town called Cool on 10 acres, and have basically been selling the greater Sacramento marketplace, like I said, for 20 years. And I'm kind of a unique realtor in that I represent multiple counties, have a very large coverage area because I did grow up on acreage in the foothills. So I understand wells and septic tanks and production reports and potability reports and leach fields and all these things that a lot of the city realtors don't necessarily encounter, so they don't understand. But then also I, of course, moved down to the city and sell in the city as well.
Wonderful. And Jen, how about yourself? Can you share? I know you operate with a team. Your partner may be joining any moment now, but why don't you kick things off and share about the Reno market as well?
Sure. So I'll just give you a little background on myself. I started in 2002 in a really small town. Oh, hey, Michelle. Small town in North Central Washington. Again, there as a realtor, I owned my own little boutique brokerage up there. You have to know farm ground. You have to know commercial. You have to know everything if you want to survive. And to do 10 transactions in a year, you're a real rock star up there. So, and then in 2014, I moved to Reno, which that's just when the market was really starting to come back. And I got involved here in Reno. And I've seen it go really, really high in 2015, slightly level off a little bit. Still very, very active market. We just weren't seeing as many multiple offers. And then this year, coming into this year, rounding the fourth quarter, we started seeing a tremendous amount of multiple offers again and a little bit lower inventory. So it's been fun to watch the cycles, and we feel very grateful because it's a very healthy market, even through this pandemic that we've all been experiencing. So
wonderful. Yeah. So I know Michelle unfortunately had to dropped off for whatever reason, but that's the benefit of a live stream. So Jen, can you share a little bit about the Reno market? From many people's perspective, it was, and maybe still is, a sleepy town that was a second fiddle to Vegas from a casino perspective. But there's much more, and it's not the same as it was before. So can you tell people about the market? And when the Gigafactory was opened up, like, what kind of impact did you see at that time? And do you still see residual effects from there?
We do. And I actually live in Story County, where the Gigafactory is placed in the county that it's in. And so I get to read all the private blogs and all that pertaining to the Gigafactory. And they're a huge contributor to Story County. And they're a huge contributor in the fact of jobs in Washoe County. Washoe County is the biggest in northern Nevada. So it's interesting because we are expecting when we went to our economic review when did we go to that? In January, I think. We're expecting over the next 5 years about 51,500 jobs over the next 5 years, and then our population growth is expected to exceed 54,000 in just just the greater northern Nevada. So there's 5 counties in that, Washoe being one of the biggest ones. Washoe County grew 1.8% over the last year, and there was a 13.5% job increase. So,
Wow.
8% increase in households. Story County, 218%, largely due to the Gigafactory. So it definitely plays a part. But in 2018, we had 30 companies come to northern Nevada, and we have a great economic development EDON. They have an epic report that goes out. It's available to everybody. It's fun to watch. A lot of people coming in from California, a lot. And the biggest thing I hear is that the tax structure. So they just don't want to pay any more taxes
Right.
than they have
Right.
to.
Very nice. Got
Yeah.
it. I know Michelle joined late. So Michelle, do you want to do a quick intro and maybe share a little of the story of how you and Jen got connected and how you guys complement each other to form a team?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in the medical field, decided to switch careers, never wanting to really go into production, or it was more for just myself. And I thankfully met Jen. We hit it off right off the bat, and we are basically like-minded. So we kind of hit the ground running and haven't stopped, essentially. We have a unique perspective on just, how to approach our market. And we really believe that relationships and building those relationships to last are really the foundation of our success. And so because her and I, we say in our tagline, mission before profits, it's truly what we mean. So it's all about relationships and long-term being able to help people.
Wonderful. And Michelle, can you share a little bit of the local market in terms of what are average price points there? What can people expect, whether it's on the quote unquote low end to luxury in the market?
Yeah. So right now, I don't have the numbers. I think, Jen, you just shared the numbers that are probably a little bit more specific but what I see when I'm out there in the market, we're looking at average, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, in the mid fours.
Yeah, our median price point is 416.5. So
yeah. So between that and then our luxury homes are still sitting in that, especially anything over $1 million, $1.5 million, they're still lingering and sitting, but they are moving because our inventory is so low. And depending on the demographics and who's deciding to come over and what kind of situation they're in, it just depends. Definitely, we are still moving pretty quickly, though. We've had, even with the COVID-19, we've kept pretty busy, helping the families that were already anticipating moving, and were able and blessed enough to keep their jobs.
Mm-hmm. And Matt, I'll switch it to you for the Sacramento market. I know the Sacramento market has been very competitive, at least from what I understand. Can you share why you feel that is? Is it mostly people from the Bay Area moving there, and are they commuting back to the Bay Area for work? Like, what do you see as the migration patterns and also just the local economy that's supporting what's been going on with Sacramento?
Yeah, great question. Sacramento has always been a unique kind of feeder city, if you will, because we are the state capital, right? So there's a lot of government, stable jobs, things of that nature. But I think also the proximity, the location is really desirable once people know about it, because, we're an hour and 45 minutes from Reno. We're an hour and 45 minutes to San Francisco and the Bay Area and all that it has to offer. We're an hour and 30 minutes to Napa Valley. We're an hour and 40 minutes to Lake Tahoe. So we're just really centrally located. We're only a little over 3 hours to Monterey and Carmel, and that's all drive time, right? So, traffic is far less than some of these congested areas like the Bay, and people really wanting to get out of. We do have a lot of people over the years that have been embracing the train and commuting down that way. Telecommuting has grown tremendously so that they can afford quite frankly, a better lifestyle up here. I can't tell you how many clients I've had through the years that it was hard for them emotionally to give up the Bay Area mindset of living there, and that's my home. I know eventually we'll move up to, Granite Bay, Roseville, but I don't know if we're ready yet. And then all the people that finally pulled the trigger and live here, they all say to me, I can't believe we didn't do this sooner. Oh my gosh, it's so much better here. Schools, traffic, quality of life, and, quite frankly, the appreciation in their homes in the Bay, as you know, Spencer, has been tremendous. So their, $500,000 home that they bought years and years ago is now 1.5, 2 million. They sell that. They buy an amazing home up here, 2 times, 3 times as good for 900,000, maybe even $1 million. And then they bank the rest and they have an amazing lifestyle. So, I had heard, and I don't know if this is still the case, but for major metropolitan cities, Sacramento is the most diverse city in the nation. So that's a pretty amazing thing to have.
No, that is amazing. And I'm getting a lot of the questions, as you can imagine, of the possible looming recession. And I'd love for you guys to comment with your respective markets, what your kind of outlook is, but at the same time, how it is different, if it is, in your opinion, this time around than the last one, especially you, Matt, where you've lived and gone through as a realtor, at least 2 downturns, if it's the last 20 years, at least 2. So I'd love to get your thoughts as to your perception and how, because I know Sacramento did get hit very hard the last time, but I also suspect things are different. So I'd love to get your thoughts of how you look at that.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And Sacramento did get hit very hard in the last economic demise there in 2008 and so on. So much so that you drive down the street and there'd be sign after sign, and dead lawns and so on. I think it was Miami, Vegas, and Sacramento were the 2, hot spots in the nation, or the 3 hot spots in the nation, I should say. I do see it being different this go around for a couple reasons. One, the economy was just absolutely cooking. Record job numbers, employment numbers before COVID. And we had very low inventory. And we still have very low inventory right now. Interest rates are very, very low. There's actually a lot of buyers that are really taking advantage of this time right now. As you might guess, there are some buyers that are sitting on the fence saying, well, I kind of want to wait and see how this all shakes out. But then there's other buyers that say, hey, you know what? This is our time. Interest rates are great. We're approved already. Let's get in there. And we have less competition than we did before COVID, competition being from other buyers, multiple offers on hot properties and so on. So what we're finding is the buyers that are in the marketplace now are very serious and motivated buyers. And what's interesting is we did some stats. In April, we were only down about 4%, 4 to 5% from the previous April, the year before. And what's interesting, in the last 2 weeks in our marketplace, pending sales and buyer showings and activity is way up, actually. So I think everybody, at least in our area, is kind of tired of being sheltered in place and locked down, so to speak, especially in Placer County. I think I don't want to downplay, but we've only had 8 deaths. Not that any of those deaths are not important, but when you really look at the grand scope of how many people live in the county and what has transpired to only have 8 deaths, and very, small percentage in regards to testing positive, people are ready. People are ready to get back with day-to-day life and get back to business, get back to moving on with their lives, getting a home, selling a home, etc. So I don't see it very similar at all compared to '08, but I will say, I do believe this is the calm before the storm. I am counseling all my clients that if you are thinking of selling, or if you were on the fence and, hey, we'll do it later this year or early next year, you're probably going to be better off to do it now, to capitalize at the peak of the market in regards to valuations. And that's why, just in the last 7 days, I have 3 new listings coming on that they said, hey, we're ready. And one of them has the house completely torn apart after I did my walkthrough with them. I mean, he's a contractor, so he's got scaffolding up and decks torn up, and he's just, 24/7 working his tail off to beat, because I told him time is not your friend right now.
Interesting.
So hopefully that helps you.
No, it does. And Jen, Michelle, what about you guys in the Reno market in terms of how you suspect things will play out, but also how it's different than it was in 2008?
Well, for me in 2008, I was up in Washington State again, in a smaller town, and we didn't feel it as hard as they did here in Reno. I know it devastated Reno. But just being in the business, I know that, banks stopped lending. It was a catastrophe across the board. So now it's different. It's just completely different, because I think it's just a setback. They tightened up their parameters a little bit. You had to have higher credit scores. So again, like Matthew said, it's just the more serious buyers that were going to be making a transaction anyway. I've started to see more activity on my listings in terms of scheduled showings. So people are out there, more traffic on the streets. I don't think there's any comparison between the previous downturn and this. And I think the one thing that we just need to remember is that, again, it was a setback that nobody had control over. And so we just need to move forward. I do think we're going to start seeing more inventory as people get back into it. So that is going to create more of a balanced market, not so much of a seller's market like we have here today. And I've coached all of our buyers and sellers, mostly the buyers, that you're not going to get that coronavirus discount that you think you're going to get. It's just not there. And if you want to have a successful transaction and you really want this property, you need to be realistic about it, and let's look at the numbers. So but it's keeping the communication open and being on the forefront of what's going on in the market, so you can be the best advocate for your clients.
Yeah. And can you share, from what you see from an activity levels perspective, like what % are they buying for themselves, and what are the percentage that they're actually investors just buying as rentals? I'd love to hear on both markets, actually, what you guys kind of see, whether it's from your own business or just what you see in the marketplace.
So I deal with investors. Probably about 15% of my business is investors, both on the list side and the buy side. And I haven't seen a lot of investors out there right now. I'm also an investor myself with my husband. And when this first happened, we decided not to move forward on a contract because we just wanted to see what was going to happen. Not thinking of, because we're not going to invest to keep it. We would flip it.
Okay.
And so we just wanted we probably in hindsight should have went ahead and bought it, but because the market's still hopping. But so I guess overall, you're probably, for our company overall, we're probably 5% investors on the grand scale. And 95% owner occupiers.
Got it. And Matt, how about yourself, of what you just see from a market perspective?
Yeah, honestly, I think the investors are hanging back because what we find, I got licensed in 95. So I've actually been through a number of downturns. When I got in, it was at the bottom of the market after the Gulf War and things of that nature and so on. So, what we find is the market typically lags anywhere from 12 to 18 to 24 months. You can look at that in 08, or in our market in Sacramento, the peak was June of 05, right? That's when we as realtors saw, wow, things are changing. We're not getting as many offers. The market's shifting. But the reality was the general public, it really didn't kind of start resonating until 07, and then everything hit the fan in 08 and just snowballed down and so forth. So I think the savvy investors are in a aspect of cutting a lot of costs, stockpiling cash right now, and really getting lean and mean and ready to get into the market. Probably, I would guess, the soonest would be at the end of this year, December, January. I've traditionally told my clients you can absolutely get a better deal if you buy in December, January, maybe February. I can get you anywhere from 1% to 3% off purchase price with my experience and skills and timing. So I think investors are very wise to that. They're going to be popping in the market here aggressively. I think at that time will be the beginning, and then probably summer, fall next year, it'll be a lot of investors coming in with cash and things of that nature.
Got it. And Michelle, can you actually walk us through? So every county and every different area had different policies of how they opened up slowly of the shelter-in-place regulations. Can you share in your market, when the shelter-in-place first occurred, how did it affect you as a realtor of what you can even do? And what were the milestones over the weeks of how they actually opened it up? And where are you at now? Are you having open houses on the weekends? Can you share what's going on there?
Of course. So in the beginning, it was a little ambiguous. We didn't have really clear direction. And for us, we were still just trying to follow, of course, the guidelines of what was recommended by our governor. And then slowly, as he became very clear on his directive that, okay, no more open homes. Jen and I were like, well, we're just going to keep going until we get a final, you can't do this, because obviously we want to adhere to what the governor and just be compliant, of course. And as things progressed, it did get very clear. However, we really never stopped being able to work when it came to vacant homes. We just took extra precaution. We still were even allowed to enter homes that, well, let me take that back. He did make a directive that we were not allowed to enter homes that were occupied. So that was no. And then we just made sure we had the wipes and gloves and masks provided. Right now, I believe we are now able to go and occupy, but we have to have certain precautions again in place. So we've got our gloves and masks and booties, but that's on a case by case. And I believe we're still in just phase 1 right now, that we have some restaurants opening. So things are starting to get active in our community again. I think we still have, I would say, the majority of people are wearing masks and being very cautious. We're still applying the 6-foot rule, as far as social distancing, but it seems like we're starting to waken up a little bit. People are getting super restless and they just want to get out. And like Jen said, I think people are going to start feeling a little bit more comfortable, and hopefully we'll be able to enter into phase 2 here in the next few weeks.
Great. And Matt, how about you guys out in SAC? Like, what was the milestones over the last few months?
It's been really interesting. For one, you said, how did it, for me personally as a realtor and broker and so on, honestly, it was business as usual. And part of that, as you know, and Jen and Michelle have come on board with us as well. EXP is a company that we're a part of, and they have been, they were basically built for this 10 years ago. We, cloud-based, virtual, and so on. So it really did not disrupt me and how I did things much at all. Now, getting outside of our home office and things of that nature, and getting out in the public spaces, there was a point for Sacramento County, which was different than Placer County, where we could not, we were deemed non-essential as realtors. And so we couldn't necessarily go show homes. And I did have some clients that were very concerned about this, well, how are you going to go show my house? I have clients in the Bay Area that had a second home here vacant that they wanted to sell. And I said, don't worry about it. I'll glove up and mask up and booty up and, do all that stuff, and we'll make things happen, because that's what Americans are about. We got to make things happen and be very safe at the same time. Since then, Sacramento. So I just got the notice today that, I think it was today or yesterday, that Placer County is now moved to phase 2. I don't believe Sacramento is phase 2 yet. So, I kind of live on the border in a town called Orangevale, which is Sacramento County, but it's right on the border of Placer. And, as a realtor, I service all those counties. So, so it's kind of interesting. But I'll give you a quick little example. I think the viewers will appreciate this to get an idea of how the market is going. I had a listing down in Sacramento that we did no lockbox, no showings, didn't even put a sign out, and so on. But I did extensive marketing through social media, internet, and so on. And we did, my videographer did a video walkthrough, basically taking it room by room, step by step, and panning around like you were a buyer walking through. And we said, hey, no showings. Go to this link on my YouTube channel and watch the video. It is as you see it. No one else has been in the property since then. And I got it sold multiple. Let's see, the first time was sold over asking price, no repairs. And they'd even cover an appraisal shortfall up to $10,000. Okay, that's how active. This was right in the middle of the shutdown, stay at home type thing. Then, interestingly, the lender for the buyer, within 2 to 3 days of escrow, came back and said, hey, we're not going to do the loan for you, for the buyer. And we said, well, why not? You gave them a full approval. These are business owners. They make great money. What's the problem? And they said, well, actually, since the governor, and by the way, the buyers owned a barber shop and a cosmetology school, and they were still cutting hair, but by appointment only. And they were gloved up and masked up and being as safe as they could, but they still got to earn income for their family, right? So, but the lender said, well, wait a minute, you own a barber shop. You're not deemed essential. You're non-essential. So this income that you're earning during this time, you should not be working. Wow. And so therefore, we're not going to approve the loan. And they lost the house. Oh, wow. Now that actually made me very angry. They weren't even my clients, but I just thought, wow, that's amazing. Right. So I put it back on the market, got it sold, multiple offers again. This was all without walkthroughs. They hadn't seen the property. Then once we had accepted contract, we walked them through the property. They thought the rooms were a little too small for them, backed out. So then I put it back on the market. I sold it a third time, over asking price. No repairs so far. I've already completed appraisal and inspections and so on. So my point in all that is, yeah, there was a disruption. We had to tweak and change some of the things that we're doing. But the reality is business goes on, and buyers that are serious. I mean, I sold that property 3 times in a span of 15 days and over asking price. Right. So, business is happening for those that are motivated and serious to get out there.
Yeah, that brings up to the next question. Is this has definitely shifted how we do business. It also has shifted how clearly the buyers have even encountered a house. What are you guys doing now that's different than before? And do you feel that's going to stay, even if things get better? It's just a new skill or new value add that you're doing now that you feel, hey, look, everyone, like we didn't have to do, Matterport before, but now everything should be Matterport. Like, are there certain aspects of the business that you're now adding to enhance as of right now, but also how you foresee it, even if things get better? And this would be for Jen and Michelle.
So I used to do Matterport for all of my listings initially, and I didn't find that it was much use for the expense.
Mhm.
And then actually, I didn't have Matterport in place on my listings, but it didn't stop. All it did was separate the serious from the non-serious. I had multiple offers. I put 3 into contract during the height of it. And yeah, and it's so like Michelle says, the show must go on. For me, you just have to think outside of the box. I think that this is really a blessing in disguise in in besides everybody getting sick. If you take that portion out of it, you get the real serious realtors that want to be busy, that want to service their clients. And then you get the real serious clients. So we just can be more productive. When you do have downtime, you focus on your self-development.
Yeah, you're not sitting on the couch eating bonbon.
Yeah, we had our team meeting, and we were on, and so we've become more reliant on technology. For those that are kind of a techie nerd, like I'm not. I don't know anything about tech. I'm trying, but I told our team, I said, listen, if you're sitting on the couch eating bonbons, you need to stop that, and you get productive. Reach out to your clients, call them, see if you can do anything for them. Just take advantage of it's an opportunity to really be a resource. So
I think for me too, Matthew shared with Brent Cove when he had his Facebook Live, and they had them talking about it. Actually also resonated about, we just remember we're all human beings, and there's more to than just what we do. And during times like this, it really identifies and resonates that we need to show warmth, and we need to be caring, and we need to dig a little bit deeper in our businesses and not always focus on the sale, and really start focusing on like being relational and having a good relationship with people, and being, care about actually their circumstances or whatever they're going through, so that you can be a better person and help them.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I get that actually comment from the network that I have in general too, as I caught up with a lot of people more than I've ever caught up with. Just because there is more time, because you're not driving as much, right? You're clearly not driving as much. And for a while, many of us were absolute lockdown where you can barely leave the house. And it was interesting that I got the comments as well. Like, they're like, wait, I thought real estate was completely frozen. Shouldn't you have like nothing to do these days? Right. And I'm like, I mean, you're on one end, you're not too far off. I mean, there's, I can't show houses anymore. There's no more open houses, but there's still plenty of other things to do that are not just actually going to a house. So whether it's catching up with a lot of people, whether it's self-improvement, Matt, you made the comment about the EXP. Especially when it first happened, there was so much change that has happened. I'm sure even from what you've seen in your 20 plus years, like there was that, when that first happened to the shelter in place, there's that 1 week or two, literally every day was something new. And there was like new forms coming out, and that was still changing on the go. Right. So that was, I can probably guess like that never happened, like that kind of change in that short of a period. And it was during that time, I was like, I'm glad that I was with EXP, because we always had ongoing virtual training. I didn't use most of it because I was, busy meeting with clients in person, or, doing what I needed to do. But during those 1 or 2 weeks, I was like, man, I need to be on top of this because there's so much happening. I don't want to get in trouble, because I know people were getting fined for going out, and there's just so much change. And fortunately, because of the infrastructure that was already in place, it was like normal. So it was like this mini bubble that we're in, where we have this virtual world, and we're still getting up to speed on training and learning new things. But then once we go out, it's like, it's empty, because, it's not as usual. So it was a little bizarre during those 1 or 2 weeks where I felt, and I think for you guys as well, you guys were still very busy doing a lot of things, even though the rest of the world was basically closed. So it was interesting that you shared that.
Absolutely.
I think from our perspective too, just from the business end, if I can share about that.
Yeah.
Michelle and I were, looking at our profit and loss from 2018. We had an independent brokerage looking at our numbers, and it all just happened. It was like, everything happens for a reason. That's my saying. Matthew reached out to me for a second or third time, I think. And then it just all fit like the glove that was supposed to fit. And I was thinking, and I shared this with Matthew, I wish I had this platform for my team when this initially started, because I was thinking EXP has got to be on top of the world because they're already set up. They were built for this, as you say. And so it was just a good fit when we joined forces and became business partners with Matthew. And we just feel really fortunate and blessed to be a part of this group while we're going through this challenging time.
Right.
I think it's a good reminder for business owners, however you have your structure, that it's good to go back and take a step back, take a look, go through your things. And it's not, you don't do it once a year, you're doing it consistently so that you can keep honing in and just getting better and better. And that's why it was a blessing for Jen and I, because we really took it seriously and said, we need to make changes where possibly we may not have done that as quickly, so.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. At times, you're just too busy in the weeds, so you don't really be able to go up and say, "Hey, look, what am I doing? Is it efficient? Is it the right way of doing it?" And fortunately, during this time, there are aspects of the business that are different for sure. Make no mistake. And I love to hear the number of new listings a week and the number of transactions. Without a doubt, here in the Bay Area, when it first happened, it was about 30 to 40% less new listings and less transactions because of that. And even today, it's about that figure. But at least this gave us the time to say, okay, well, that's a little bit slower. But there's also a lot of other things that are like, it became a debt because you're kind of pushing it off, right? Because you're too busy running your operations. You didn't say, hey, look, well, are these the right things? Are these the right tools? Do we have things set up right? So as you had the time to fix that, and now that the market has started getting a lot busier, now you're actually implementing those and you're kind of improving those as you go. So I think it's a really interesting time for those that, like us, have been active. And then if you're not, then I think those that were not active and thought this was like a mini vacation, it's more of a, they're much further behind now. And during these kind of times, that's really what I believe creates a bigger gap. And I know for sure in my network, when they see like this kind of activity, they say, wow, you've been extremely active, likely actually more than ever because it's more digital content, that you start becoming more of that thought leader versus others. They're like, wait, when things were not good, where'd you go? Oh, you didn't do anything? Okay. I'll have to think twice if I really want to use you. But I love to hear from a numbers perspective, you can share, I shared about the Bay Area of, 30 to 40% less new listings a week. So inventory was already bad across the country, and it was now significantly worse. Love to hear from your side if you've seen the data, or if you can share, the buyer interest has certainly picked up, but from a listings perspective, what do you guys see right now? Was it slowly creeping up? Matt, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I don't have the actual percentage. I apologize, but what I can tell you, a good indicator is months of inventory. And we had very low inventory at the beginning of the year. We were hoping spring would really bring the traditional yearly glut of new listings coming on. And then all of a sudden COVID hit. So I think if I remember, we were at about at one point, we were below a month of inventory. Okay. And so for those listening, typically anywhere from 1 to 4, maybe 5 months is a seller's market. 5 to 6 is a neutral market. And, 6 and beyond is a buyer's market, meaning if no new listings come on the market and we just have what's there with buyer demand, how long is it going to take to exhaust inventory? So, we track that and so on. So we were looking at one point, if I remember, it was 0.8 months, and then it was about 1.2. I think now I looked, we were at 2.1. So a pretty good little jump, but the reality is we're still in that sweet spot in regards for sellers. And that's why I'm telling them, I said, look, now is the time to get your home on the market. That's why my seller is working 24/7 with scaffolding and decks torn up. And he's, his wife sent me photos. She goes, he's a crazy man. I said, well, he's motivated. He wants to, maximize his investment here. And they're actually looking in the Reno area. So I was able to refer them to Jen and Michelle, who are absolute rock stars up there. Just a little side, Spencer, I don't know if you know or the viewers know, Jen and Michelle, they had about 3 years at Keller Williams, and 2 out of the 3 years, they were the number 1 selling agents in that office. So, I mean, you got some of the best in the Reno Sparks area there.
Nice. And then Jen, Michelle, can you share also kind of the figures that you've been seeing?
Sure. So last month in March, when we looked at the numbers, we, like, as I shared earlier, before we came on, we had a better March in 2020 than we did in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Just over 1,000 listings on the market last year, and this year our listings were down at just over 700. So it's still very low inventory. We were sitting at about 2.5 months compared to the units that sold. But as I'm looking at the numbers for April, we had 561 units on the market, and out of that, 374 have sold. So what is that, about like a month and 3 quarters? So wow. We're still really, really low. Again, that just kind of goes to the multiple offers that we're seeing. It's going to depend on the price point, but even in the the $4 to $6 million range, when we were looking at those numbers, those are still in like 90 days on the market, depending on the quality, and condition of the home. So it's going to be specific to the area. It's pretty diverse, different areas, which I'm sure it is there in the Sacramento market as well, in the Bay Area. But all in all, inventory is low. Buyers are out there. Interest rates are low. Like, the time is now for everybody. So,
mm-hmm. Do you see much of a difference? Maybe can you share a little bit of the history of the downtown areas where it's more dense versus suburbia per se, like over the years, and how you see this play out, where people may be possibly more concerned of more dense shared spaces?
So yeah, the city of Reno went to great lengths to do this Reimagine Reno. It's a massive, you can Google Reimagine Reno, and they're really trying to transform from it being a casino town to a university town. And then that goes from downtown, it goes into midtown, and they've rehabbed all of this area. It's wonderful. It's the walkability is fantastic. There's bistros, brew pubs, little boutiques. So people really want to be in that urban area. And again, you're gonna, it just depends on the type of people. Like someone like myself, I want to be away from people. So
Right.
I go out on 10 acres, with wild horses. But then you get people that really want that urban living, and it has a whole new transformation, and it's still in the works. It's starting to more to the east, where the VA hospital is, where it was really run down before. So you're really seeing that gentrification, and it's coming along. But the prices are spendier there, obviously. But downtown, you're starting to see a lot of the old motels and hotels get cleaned up, and now they're becoming apartments or condos, and more medical facilities going in. So they're doing a good job. Their vision is wonderful.
What would you say would be the average price point or entry level for that area versus places closer to where there's a gigafactory or where all the logistics are? And how far is that distance?
So you're going to have downtown is right there at the core of the 395 I-80. Depending on square footage, you can get a studio apartment anywhere from 120,000 to 300,000, depending on the amenities. Anything larger, you're going up to 5 to 700,000. If you get more into the midtown area, you probably can't find anything for under 450,000, and it's going to be dated and probably need a good remodel. If it has been remodeled, you're going to be 500,000-600,000. As you go further east on I-80, Sparks is right there, and that's where the gigafactory is, out that way, about 15-20 miles ish. So So those houses, Sparks has a different median price point. They're probably about $40,000 to $50,000 less than Reno. But you're getting on a little bit bigger lots, maybe, a little less than a quarter of an acre as a standard rule, bigger houses. So we do see, and that has slowed down quite a bit, but we did see quite a few investors buying big single family homes to rent out to a lot of these gigafactory workers, which is interesting because I've always thought investments should be multiple units, and that's just the way my brain works. But everyone has a plan. So
that is interesting you brought that up, because I know for a fact many of my friends and my contacts in the Bay Area, because we're many of us are in tech, when it first was announced, they're like, okay, well, what an opportunity to buy, investment property. And I don't know if they didn't consider multifamily, or maybe there's just not that many anyways there. They're like, let's just buy a single family house and rent that out to whoever moves there. So it was a discussion for sure amongst a lot of people here, especially when it first came out.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of like duplexes. They're few and far between. You see a lot of, especially downtown, midtown area, a lot of 2 single family homes on one APN, which is great. And they're kind of separated by a fence, but then one house has to enter from the alley. So it's just interesting. You see a lot of that, but you don't, or bigger apartment buildings. And a lot of them are owned by major investor groups. But you don't see very many duplexes and almost none that are newer.
Can you actually clarify that? Because I'm not familiar with that here. What does that mean in that case of logistically of 2 houses on one APN? Like, does one person buy and owns 2 of them, or it's in half? Like, how does that work?
No, it's one owner,
okay.
And they may live in one, rent the other one out. They may rent both of them out. I've had a few of them for sale, and actually big construction companies have come in and purchased them for their employees also. And
wow.
It's just, a good, at that time, it was like a $330,000 sale, and they could house all their employees. Then they're going to take advantage of the market and turn around and sell it when they're done. Similar to what parents will do at the university when they have, kids, if they don't want to pay the dorm fees or somebody else's rent, because rents are on the higher side, then they'll just buy a house close to the university and rent it out to all of the kids' friends.
Right.
And make it a business opportunity.
Interesting. And Matt, can you share for the Sacramento area? I know downtown for a while was gentrifying a lot, was really picking up. How are things going now? Is that still the trend?
Yeah, just to clarify on the duplex thing, or the 2 homes on one lot, it is labeled as a duplex. So you might be thinking, a duplex being a shared wall, which is a duplex, but then also if you had a granny flat in the back and maybe a fence separating the 2 yards, which I have a rental that is that way, they're 2 clearly separate structures, but they're on one APN. They're still listed as a duplex. So just like Jen was saying.
Interesting.
So anyway, Sacramento is an interesting place because we don't have a really strong we didn't have a really strong downtown. Honestly, people living around here would say for years it's pretty dead. I don't even need to go down there. Nothing's going on. But when they put the Sacramento Kings, the Golden One Center downtown, that produced a lot of excitement. There was a lot of business owners and visionaries that were saying, hey, I want to put my store, my shop, my restaurant, what have you, right there in K Street and walking distance. And so it just kind of built this excitement, and there was a lot more interest in, frankly, living downtown is convenient. No matter what downtown you're in, what city, there's the value of convenience. You can just walk out the door and go to all these fine dining and entertainment and so on. And for years, and it's still the case, Sacramento has been known as urban sprawl. And it really is. If you go, south, you'll head into Laguna and Elk Grove. You go up, east, northeast and west and so on. You got your, Citrus Heights, Antelope, Orange Vales, Fair Oaks, and Roseville, Rockland, Lincoln up 65, and then on up through Penryn, Newcastle, Auburn up 80, and the same up 50 in regards to Folsom, El Dorado Hills, and on up the hill to Placerville. So it's interesting because there was a resurgence of wanting to live downtown because of everything that was going on in Sacramento. I don't work a ton down there. I mean, I do represent it when I have clients and referrals and so on, but it's not my primary focus down there because I am in suburbia here, kind of in the middle. So I can drive downtown. I'm about 30 minutes away, or I'm 30, 40 minutes up in the foothills of Meta Vista and Placerville and Shingle Springs and Cool and so on. So what I'm finding, though, is very similar to how Bay Area folks want to get out of the hustle and bustle and the proximity of being so close to your neighbor and the traffic and everything that is the opposite of all the convenience, is they're wanting to get up, move up to Sacramento where you got a little bit more space and so on. And now being that Roseville and Sacramento area and these areas have really expanded and grown since the crash of 08. The real bottom of the market was 2011. So it's been 8-9 years of straight appreciation. And that is really fueled by people coming into the area. People that have been here for a while go, you know what? It's not like it used to be. And they're moving further up the hill, so to speak, as we say. So that would be up 80 or up 50 towards Tahoe on the 50 side, or towards Reno, via Auburn and Newcastle and Meta Vista and Applegate and Weimar and some of these places on 80. So it's been kind of neat for me personally, because I do represent the city and these suburbs and, the different little quote unquote cities of Citrus Heights and Antelope and Rockland and so on. But I'm able to help them sell their home here and then move them up the hill. And so I think with COVID, what I'm guessing is going to be the case is more and more people are seeing the value of being a little bit more separated, having that social separation. It's going to be really interesting, Spencer. And I'd love to get your take on the Bay. Do you think this whole shelter in place and this whole emotional, psychological aspect that we've truly experienced, where the world stopped, and now we're keep your 6 feet and wear your mask and don't shake hands and all this stuff, is it going to stick? Or, is it going to be back to business as normal? I'm not so sure it's going to be back to fully business as normal. I think until there's a cure, it's going to be, we're definitely going to pivot. I don't know if it's going to last, but it's going to be a pivot for a while, I believe. And I think that's going to increase people looking for a little bit more space and acreage and getting out of the congested spaces. So I do think it's going to change the momentum for sure in the downtown spaces, especially with these businesses not being able to conduct business. And it's been very damaging. And I don't think we have any clue as to the damage of how bad it really is. I think this is the calm before the storm. I think you're going to see the commercial markets get hit dramatically. You're going to see a bunch of signage in regards to where businesses used to be, but they're going to be empty because as a result, people have lost and are losing their businesses, which is really sad. And it actually angers me because people, the American way is to be that entrepreneur and take that risk and so on. And, they've built their lives around these businesses, and now it's gone in a matter of 90 days because they didn't have the reserves to make it through and so on. So anyway, kind of a little rabbit trail, but it's just kind of an interesting time. I'd love to get your take.
Yeah, my take, especially with the Bay Area, I really follow how companies plan to roll things out. So a lot of the companies, especially in the Bay Area, are heavy tech. And you had like a company like Twitter recently announced that people don't have to come back to the office ever. So that's a huge change of their corporate real estate mentality. Now, that's only one example. And then you have Facebook and Google that said you can work from home until the end of the year at the very least. And they've built huge campuses, and they have huge projects coming up too, especially Google with downtown San Jose, which is a giant village environment, which is planned to have, I believe it was 5 million square footage of office space. So I don't know what will happen with that. And that's been a multi-year project that, if you were going through their trajectory, they definitely needed it. But now when things have changed, I do not know. And that's the interesting thing that I continue to monitor, because that has very lasting impacts of what may or may not happen with Bay Area real estate. Because if you think about Bay Area real estate, for the most parts, have been very dense in certain areas of where the jobs are at, especially the high paying jobs. It was basically San Francisco, or let's say around Mountain View. And, traffic was really bad because they all go one direction and they all go back home in a different direction. So that's a very big impact, but that's not all companies have the luxury to do that or the interest of doing that. So it will be interesting to see. However, what I have noticed for sure, now that things have opened up, think about how people use their house, especially in the Bay Area, where the space itself is generally smaller than your areas. Now, they pay an X amount to live there, and they used to go to the work and then they go home and do what they need to do. But think about the behavior changes that have happened now. Kids are at home because they can't go to a school. And if the work life is actually mostly work remote at home these days, they need an extra room for an office room. So what's interesting is over the 2 months, they've started to say, I can't live like this anymore. I need a bigger space, right? I just can't. I have my computer on my kitchen cabinet, my kitchen counter. That's how they work, because there's no other room. And now their kid is also running around in circles all day because they're not in a childcare facility. And so what I get a lot now is there's a lot of activity of now things have opened up so that we can even go see houses. But they also realize and have got to a point they need more space. So all the conversations I have is like, I can't live like this anymore. I need another bedroom. Whatever they have, they need at least another bedroom. Now, whether that's still in the same city, it's still the case. They may move further out, or they can get even further out to even Sacramento and Reno. That I don't know.
I love it. Bring them. Come on.
Yeah.
We got it.
So it's interesting to see, but it is still early. It is very early, because the other aspect from a corporate real estate perspective is, if you think about their plans and how they think about their strategy, they've been doing that for decades of a specific model. So for in 2 months for them to completely say we don't need any more space when we have 30,000 engineers here, that's not as easy as one would think. It doesn't flip like that. So there's a lot of change that will happen, but there's no clear direction just yet, if it's going one way. Because the other concern then is, if they're really able to go remote, they may not even go to Sacramento or Reno. They may just go Midwest, right? Or they can go Asia or somewhere like even way cheaper. So you have this aspect where it's still unknown. It's still, how far can they go? That there's just too many questions.
Yeah. Well, everything you said excites me, because Sacramento is a good spot. They're only an hour and 45 minutes drive, and they could ride the train down. And that has been a trend, by the way, all kidding aside, where more and more people are moving out. More companies are saying, hey, you can telecommute, just come down one day a week, right? Check in, or 2 days a week. And so they'll, ride a train, do an Airbnb or do a hotel room, and the company even to put them up, and then they come back. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think COVID has really made people aware, companies aware that, doggone, we're paying a ton of money for all of this brick and mortar to house all these employees. And the reality is we're doing pretty good business with them at home. And I think we got a happier workforce, quite frankly. My wife, she's a title rep, and she didn't, she was not working from home until this. And she found that she was more productive at home because she wasn't talking to all her title officers and shooting the breeze and doing all this. She goes, yeah, I'm at home working because I don't have any distractions. So, I think that's going to be more the case.
Yeah. And I agree. I think it's going to be a fine balance though, too. You're right. Generally people will feel that way, but then you have this challenge now where employers say, hey, look, you know what? You're technically now going to be working way more too, because you always have a computer. You have everything set up. You need to work longer hours now, right? Versus in the past, maybe all you needed to do was go into the office. That was your hours. And then you have this work-life balance. So there's definitely some strain on the other end where they say, hey, look, you're pretty productive. and you're answering emails all day, every day. Okay, this is very good for me. Now I'm going to make you work just like that. So then people say, no, let me go back to the office. Right? I don't want to work these evenings. So a lot of things have changed, and as change, we'll see how things go, because I do get that concern. Like, people are getting burned out because they're technically there's no balance anymore, because you're always going to be technically able to work. So there's these challenges just of how they manage their employees and from a happiness perspective. So nevertheless, love to wrap things up. And I know we went through an hour, went by very quickly. And thank you so much for sharing both of the markets. It is definitely very interesting, and it is always very different than here in the Bay Area. So Matt, what's the best way of people to be able to get in touch with you?
They can either call or text. My cell phone is 916-718-2979. If they wanted to learn a little bit more about me, they can go to my website and click the About Me tab, which would be MatthewStewartRealEstate.com, www.MatthewStewartRealEstate.com, or email MatthewStewartRealEstate@gmail.com.
Wonderful. And Jen and Michelle, what's the best way of getting a hold of you guys?
We have our team website is info@liveloveplayinv.com. And then you can always contact
us. That's our email.
Yeah, that's our team. That's our
web.
That's our no. Yeah, that's our email. Sorry. Our website is www.liveloveplay.
Reno Property Pros.
Yeah, we have two.
There's two. Okay.
Yeah, and then our team phone number is 888-557-1663. And then my cell phone is 775-420-7147, available most anytime for questions. We love to chat with people and share our story.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So just one more time, it's renopropertypros.com is our website.
Yeah.
Got it.
And
okay.
My number is 775-400-6024. And again, Jen and I, we love to help people. So bring on any questions. Even if you want to come out and you want us to show you around, we'll be happy to do that.
They're awesome.
We have, if anybody wants a book, they can get a hold of us directly, but we have this book. We didn't write it, of course, but maybe one day, but it's the 100 best things to do in Reno. And there is so many fun things. It's so diverse, from skiing to water skiing, to being out on your motorcycles, to skydiving, casinos, if you want. Yeah.
Riding wild horses bareback.
Riding wild horses bareback.
Sweet.
Very nice. I need a copy of that book. So
I'll send you one.
Please. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. Just as some housekeeping items. So this is every Wednesday. We'll have another one next week. Next week we'll have Palm Beach, Florida. I'll have a guest from there. And one more, I don't remember off the top of my head, but one more realtor as well in a different city. Well, thank you so much. We'll wrap it up. Have a good one.
Thanks, Spencer.
Bye.
Thanks, Matthew. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you.